Nothing feels more like falling through the earth than hearing your new spouse announce, "You're not good enough," right after you've promised forever. I still see his face in that moment, white with determination, standing at the altar while my mother sobbed beside me and my father's face crumpled. The summer sun bounced off the stained glass windows, casting fractured rainbows across the pews. I had just taken his hand, ready to say "I do," when his voice cut through the hush like a knife. "I'm sorry," he said, voice trembling, "but you're not good enough for my family. I can't marry you." The murmurs rippled through the chapel. My bouquet slipped from my fingers, petals scattering. Across the aisle, I stared at him, mouth open, heart pounding so wildly I feared it would explode. What?" I stammered, my voice so small I almost didn't hear it. The groom I'd loved for years was pulling away his promise of forever, leaving me alone at our wedding. He drew a breath. "I've tried, believe me, but every time my sister eyes your dress like it's too plain. My mother's barely hidden disgust at your accent. My father still can't stop talking about how you don't fit our image. I can't do this to them or to you." He swallowed. "I'm sorry." Shock pressed down on me like a tidal wave. "You can't do this," I whispered. "You're joking." "Right." He shook his head. "I have to honor my family." And then, like a cracked record skipping the same painful line, he added, "I'm sorry." I stepped back. For a moment, the only sound was my dress rustling, the whisper of tulle against stone floor. Then tears erupted, hot and unstoppable. My bridesmaids rushed forward, but I waved them away. I had to hear their judgment directly. My future sister-in-law, standing just behind him, let out a reluctant sigh. "About time someone said it," she muttered, so loudly it echoed in my ears. I glanced at the guests, faces filled with confusion, pity, that sickening mix of "oh, what drama." I wanted to crawl under a pew. I wanted to erase every moment leading to this heartbreak. My wedding day, my happy beginning, was unraveling before me. I swallowed hard, trudging down the aisle, each step a pounding reminder of betrayal. My dress swept the floor, my veil blurred the stained glass. Outside, the courtyard promised sunlit freedom, but I hesitated. Could I ever face the world again after this? My best friend, Ellie, met me at the church doors, arms outstretched. She squeezed me tight. "I'm so sorry," she whispered, tears in her voice. I clutched her, hot tears soaking her shoulder. He disowned me." Ellie led me to her car, away from whispered gossip, away from judgmental stares. As we drove, the radio played a slow love song that now felt like a cruel joke. I stared out the window, watching my wedding plans dissolve into traffic lights and concrete. When we reached her apartment, she helped me out of my dress. The satin in my heart felt hollow. I wrapped myself in a blanket on her couch, sobbing into tea. "What do I do now?" I asked, voice raw. Ellie's hands shook as she handed me tissues. "You survived today. Tomorrow you figure out how to live again. But first," she paused, hugging me, "you're not alone." In those hours, I realized two things. First, that love from a spouse or a family can be conditional and cruel. And second, that my own worth didn't depend on their acceptance. My journey would be about reclaiming my identity, building resilience, and finding love that didn't hinge on someone else's approval. The morning after my wedding unraveling, the world felt both too bright and unbearably dull. I woke on Ellie's couch, the blanket twisted around me, and checked my phone, no messages from him, only a text from my mother, Call me when you can, darling. I stared at the screen until my chest ached, then dialed home. Mom! I croaked. Oh, sweetheart, she sobbed. He left in such a hurry. Your father and I are beside ourselves. I heard her muffled cries and felt tears burn my eyes. Mom, I'm okay. Well, as okay as possible. I need to think. She sniffed. Of course. Just know we love you and will support you. Always. That promise, unconditional love, warmed me. I stepped onto the balcony, letting the cool dawn air fill my lungs. My world had shattered, but here was proof I wasn't alone. First steps, surviving the shock. Ellie arrived with coffee and croissants. We sat at her kitchen island, sunlight slanting across the countertops. I peeled back my hair. I'm numb, I admitted, stirring sugar into black coffee. Shock, Ellie said. Your brain is protecting you. Don't fight it. Let yourself feel, but in small doses. She handed me a journal she bought. Soft leather, blank pages. Write it all out. Every anger, every tear. Then close the book when you're done. I nodded, understanding that processing pain needed ritual. I spent the next 2 days in a blur of tears, naps, and pages filled with raw anguish. He said I wasn't good enough. My dress, my accent, my family, nothing was enough. I feel unworthy. Writing felt like exhaling fragments of a nightmare. Ellie's gentle voice reminded me, worth isn't defined by someone else's prejudice. You are whole, with or without their approval. Reclaiming my space. On day 3, I packed a small bag and returned home, my half-empty honeymoon suite of a life we'd planned. The bed still smelled like his cologne. The sheets held the weight of broken promises. I stripped the sheets, ripped off the rose petals from our aisle decor, and set them outside for pickup. Each torn petal felt like a knot in my stomach loosening. I opened closet doors, pulled down my gown, and placed it in a box to donate. To charity, not to burn. Salvation lay in transformation, not destruction. In the kitchen, I restocked the fridge with groceries I actually liked. Greek yogurt, fresh fruit, artisanal cheese. No more pretending to enjoy bland meals we'd pick for ease. I was reclaiming my home, one shelf at a time, seeking support, building my squad. That evening, I assembled my support squad. Ellie, my best friend, whose couch and shopping sprees were lifesavers. My therapist, Dr. Lynn, who I'd seen for career stress. I booked an emergency session. My sister, Dana, who lived across the country, but sent care packages full of candles and handwritten letters. A local single moms group, which promised camaraderie with women starting over. In Dr. Lynn's office, I sobbed into an armchair. She slipped me tissues and guided me through grounding exercises. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Name 5 things I see, for I feel. 3 I hear, 2 I smell, 1 I taste. By the end, my racing heart slowed. Dr. Lynn nodded. You're taking control. Small steps matter. Setting boundaries. Cutting ties. Next, I needed to decide our practical next steps. I drafted emails. To his family, I appreciate your concern, but please do not contact me directly. I'll reach out when I'm ready. To our wedding vendors, please cancel any remaining services. To friends and colleagues, a short note explaining a personal emergency and that I needed time away. When my mother-in-law called, I answered calmly, I'm hurt, but I need distance from your judgments. I'll contact you when I'm ready. She paused, then murmured an apology. For the first time, I felt clear power in my voice. Rediscovering myself, new chapters. With boundaries in place, I turned to building my new routine. I signed up for a dance class I'd always wanted to try, salsa. I joined a weekend painting workshop downtown. The first time I twirled under disco lights, sweat on my brow, laughter bubbling up, I remembered joy wasn't reserved for couples. It belonged to me. On Tuesday nights, I hosted a recovery dinner club with 3 friends, each going through their own turmoil. We took turns cooking, pouring wine, and sharing our stories. The solidarity was balm for my fractured heart. Facing the future, career, and community, my job as a marketing director became a lifeline. I threw myself into a new campaign, launching a women's empowerment initiative, crafting copy about resilience, authenticity, and self-worth, helping other women find their voices mirrored my own journey. I also volunteered at the local children's museum once a week, reading stories to toddlers. Their unguarded laughter, their endless why questions reminded me of wonder beyond. Heartbreak, an unexpected turn, a courageous confrontation. One evening, 5 weeks after my wedding disaster, I found a message in my inbox from him. "Meg, I've been a coward. I'm sorry for what I did and what my family did. Can we talk?" My heart pounded. I drafted a reply. "I appreciate the apology, but I need clarity. Let's meet at the cafe on Maple. Saturday, 10 a.m. On Saturday, I arrived first, sunlight sparkling through the window of the little bakery. My heart fluttered when he walked in, looking smaller than I remembered, carrying a single white rose. He sat downcast. "Thank you for meeting me," he began. I sipped my latte. "I want honesty." He nodded. "Mom was cruel. Dad pressured me. I was torn, but none of that justifies my actions. I panicked at the altar, but I should have fought for you." His admission felt like a final stitch in my healing quilt, painful, but closing the wound. I leaned forward. "I'm proud of you for owning it, but I've changed, too. I know my worth." He smiled sadly. "I knew that when I met you. I'm sorry I forgot." We sat in silence, the world humming around us. I realized I didn't need more words, just the closure of his truth. I extinguished the rose from the stem and set it on the table, petals dropping like hope renewed. "Thank you," I whispered. "Goodbye." He nodded, tears shining. "Goodbye, Meg." Emergence, a new dawn. As I walked back to my car, the rose petals scattered in the wind, I felt lighter. The weight of his betrayal lifted, replaced by the ballast of my own resilience. Back home, I opened my journal and wrote, "I am worthy of love that fights for me, not deserts me. I survived the worst day of my life, and I will create a future brighter than that shattered altar." I closed the book, heart steady for the first time since the wedding. My reflection in the hallway mirror showed a woman forged in pain but glowing with purpose. Tonight, as I pour myself a glass of wine and sink into my favorite armchair, I whisper into the quiet, "I am enough, always have been, always will be." And as the moonlight bathes my home, I know my story is only beginning, one of rebirth, of discovering that sometimes the end of a dream is the start of a new, even more beautiful one. I never imagined my greatest triumph would be finding myself after the greatest betrayal of my life. The rose petals I set down in the cafe had drifted away with the breeze, but the symbolism stuck with me, endings scattering like fragile petals and beginnings carried on the wind. I returned home that Saturday with a lightness I hadn't felt since I first slipped into my wedding gown. The man who had broken my heart now lay buried in the past, and in its place lay fertile ground for a life I would cultivate with intention. That evening, I settled into my writing nook, a cozy corner by the window, soft lamplight, illuminating my journal, and a stack of personal development books. I lit a vanilla cinnamon candle and looked over the pages where I'd chronicled my pain and my progress. Now I was ready to write the final chapter of my wedding nightmare and the first of my renaissance. Time to reclaim my story, I murmured, picking up a fresh page. Becoming my own hero. In the months since I walked out of that chapel, I discovered that healing isn't passive, it's active, a daily choice to center your well-being. I developed 3 core habits that anchored me. 1. Morning rituals for mind and body. Each dawn, I rose with the sun and poured a cup of tea infused with ginger and lemon. Seated by my window, I practiced 5 minutes of mindful breathing, followed by gentle yoga stretches. Then, I reviewed my daily intentions list, gratitude for what I had, clarity on what I wanted to achieve, and a mantra, I am enough. Over time, my body felt stronger, my mind quieter, and my heart more open to possibility. 2. Creative expression. I enrolled in a local pottery class, channeling my emotions into clay. My first wobbly bowl cracked in the kiln, but that crack taught me that imperfection can be beautiful. As I shaped clay on the wheel, I felt control return to my hands, one rotation at a time. Each finished piece, flawed and authentic, reminded me that I could build something new from shards of my past. 3. Community connection. I volunteered as a reading mentor at the children's library and joined a weekend hiking group for single women. Surrounded by laughter, support, and fresh air, I realized that connection is the antidote to isolation. Hearing others' stories of resilience inspired me to share my own journey, offering hope to women who felt lost in betrayal. Redesigned relationships. Rebuilding my life also meant redefining relationships, old and new, with intentional boundaries and fresh compassion. Family. My parents remain my steadfast allies. We instituted a monthly heart-to-heart ritual, Sunday dinners where we shared triumphs and fears with no judgment. Their unconditional love bolstered my confidence, and I learned to lean into vulnerability without shame. Friends. Ellie and Dana traveled cross-country to see my pottery showcase. We hiked to a waterfall and shared dreamboarding sessions over wine, dissecting career goals, travel plans, and yes, new love possibilities. Their unwavering faith in me reminded me that I deserved every good thing life offered. My ex. After our cafe closure, I didn't ghost him. I sent one final message. Thank you for the lessons. I've moved forward, wishing you healing too. It was the kindest goodbye I could offer, acknowledging that grace matters, even when inflicted by betrayal. Career renaissance. With my personal life thriving, my professional world flourished. Inspired by my own transformation, I pitched a new campaign at work, Rise Again, a series of video profiles featuring women who reinvented themselves after hardship. I moderated on-camera interviews, weaving storytelling with practical tips, financial planning, self-care practices, community building. The campaign's launch sparked nationwide buzz, and within weeks, I was invited to speak at a women's leadership conference. I stood on that stage, lights warm on my face, and shared my story, the wedding that fell apart, the months in the attic of grief, and the rebuild that led me here. I spoke not as a victim, but as a survivor, taking questions, offering resources, and challenging the audience to reframe their own narratives. At the end, the standing ovation felt like a collective embrace, sealing my new identity as a voice of resilience, opening my heart again. Of course, as I grew stronger, Questions about love surfaced. Was I ready to date? Could I trust? Again. One Saturday, I downloaded a dating app. Small, tentative steps. My profile read, "Curious soul, pottery novice, tea lover, seeking someone who values honesty as much as I do." The first few messages were awkward, emoji-filled exchanges and tentative coffee. Suggestions. But one message stood out. "I admire your openness. Would love to grab tea and hear about your pottery journey." His name was Daniel, a graphic designer who'd also overcome his own heartbreak. Our first date at a cozy cafe felt easy. Laughter over latte art, stories of failed pottery experiments, and the shared recognition that vulnerability can be a courageous superpower. Over the next months, we explored art galleries, hiked through fall leaves, and even took a weekend pottery retreat together. With Daniel, I felt seen, not defined by my past, but embraced for my present. And when the time was right, I introduced him to my trusted circle, Ellie elbowing me with a grin. "Look at you, my brave potter." Looking back, moving forward. Today, as I walk past that attic door, now a painted canvas for my daughter's doodles, I feel gratitude for the woman I became in the dust of my wedding dress. My life, once derailed by those cruel words, has become an odyssey of self-discovery. I taught myself that worth isn't granted by someone else's family. It's claimed in acts of courage, compassion, and creativity. Last week, I stood before a room full of women at a second act panel, divorcees, widows, career changers, and shared my closing thoughts. The bravest thing we can do is to believe in our own worth, even when others deny it. Let your heart break so it can open wider. Embrace your cracks, for they let the light in. And remember, your story isn't over until you choose to write the next chapter. As the applause washed over me, I saw reflections of my journey in the audience's eyes. And I knew that my story, once capped by cruelty, had become a beacon for others. The hook's afterglow. I began with a question about shattered hearts. I end with the answer I found in the shards. Authenticity is the glue that binds us to ourselves and to the people who truly matter. Tonight, as I sit on my porch swing with Daniel's hand in mine, the jasmine in bloom, I whisper into the warm summer night, I am good enough, more than enough. And in that simple truth, I celebrate not just the end of a wedding day nightmare, but the lifelong journey of choosing self-worth every single morning.